Hey guys, blown leads, tied games, and massive comebacks. Join us as we react to week 3 of the NFL. Hey guys, we're so happy everyone reacted or kind of came to our last video with a lot of enthusiasm, got a good amount of views for us. We appreciate every view. We're constantly trying to get better, so if you guys have any recommendations, put it down in the comments, or even if you just want to tell how better your team is than everyone else. Some really sharp play this last week, Andy. A lot of Not a lot. I would say this week was like a mix of the first and second week for me, where you had some games that kind of went the way we expected it, and then some really, really good quality football. And we didn't know going into the season how much good football we would get, but surprisingly, most of the teams are doing good. Not a lot of penalties. Um, Overall, Andy, what is kind of your reflection on this first few days, or not first few days, but last week of football?
Week 3 was a lot like week 1 in the terms of games not kind of going like we thought. But, as weeks go on, the play is starting to get better and better, less penalties, less stupid mistakes, other than injuries, which have caused a lot of teams problems. Like you said, we're seeing some good football. We're seeing teams that lost week 1, week 2, riding the ship as of late, or maybe not performing as well in week 2, starting to perform a lot better in week 3. So it's good to see that, as we get closer and closer to, week 8, week 9, the kind of midway point of the season, we're going to see these teams start to take that midseason form, that form we're going to see for the rest of the year, what this team will actually be. So we're starting to get a glimpse in each team. We're not completely there yet to say which, all the teams are going to bring this year, but we're getting there, Ashton. But I think it's time that we just go ahead and jump right off into the AFC. Let's start
Well,
reacting to the AFC game.
let's first state with our predictions. You had 9 out of 16 games right. I had 10 out of 16. So first week I've done better than you, so I'm very proud. I'm selfish. I wish my Rams could have brought me home another W. Pick could have gone two up or tied. So I'm still down one in total predictions. I think we're both positive on the season so far in the amount of games predicted. So I am pretty happy about our combined average so far. I think it's probably in the 60% range, which
Let's kick off this week's reactions with the Thursday night AFC game between my Dolphins and the Jaguars. I originally had the Jaguars winning. You had the Dolphins. You were correct. The Dolphins pulled out a game, a lot more
Fins.
complete game, a lot more complete game from the Dolphins that I've seen. But to be fair, we're playing a terrible defense in Jacksonville, an offense that really solely revolves around DJ Chark and Minshew. With DJ Chark being injured, that offense couldn't really do much. I mean, it makes sense. Dolphins is a game, beginning of the season, I think I had them winning, but, going to this week's prediction, I had them losing. So I was a little impressed, but then again, you can't be too impressed. It is the Jaguars. They're still a dumpster fire, even though they have gotten a win this year. So it's good to finally get that first one out of our system. Hopefully we can grow on it. I think good things. Fitzpatrick's doing, hit or miss this year against the, lesser teams. He's playing good against the more tough teams. He's not playing as good, but a lot of football left, and it's good to see us get that win.
Hmm. Yeah, I kind of predicted this type of game for Dolphins. I thought this was a type of team, as I said in a prediction video, that the Dolphins could take advantage of, and they did, and they executed in all three phases. In general, Fitzpatrick or Fitzmagic, he has a ceiling, especially against good teams, but against bad teams, he'll do good. There's a reason why he's been on 9 different teams whenever they're looking for kind of a rent a QB and they don't want to go with someone worse. So he's not going to wreck your season. He's not going to get you above 500, to be honest. So let's move on to the 49ers at Giants. We both had the 49ers winning. I gotta be honest, Andy, it is kind of sad this Giants team is worse than all of the secondary of the 49ers. Like, I'm not saying the 49ers have a bad depth. They're a good team, but it just shows how bad the Giants are that they can't even field a football team that can beat mostly fill-ins for the 49ers.
100%, Ashton. You look at the Giants, they scored 9 points against a defense that was very, very hurt. I think 49ers put over 35 points on the Giants. So it really shows even with a decently healthy Giants team, they really lose Saquon. But the 49ers are leaps and bounds better than the Giants depth wise. You look at the Giants, the entire offense revolves around Saquon Barkley. Without him, they're the next upgrade of a dumpster fire. I don't even know what that is, but they're that bad. They're in that contention with the Jets to be the worst team in the NFL. I still think the Giants are a little bit worse, but both of those teams got their running backs hurt. So when their running backs go down, Giants a little bit more so. It's going to affect them. They can't win. Giants are going to lose a lot more games, and they play your Rams next week, correct?
Yes, I believe so, and I am looking
That's
forward. I'm looking forward to a stress-free game, Andy,
Oh yeah.
and I can just lay back and, I have a feeling the Rams are going to take out their frustrations from this last week, and
Well, we'll talk about this more in the prediction video, but honestly, if the Rams don't put up 40 plus on these Giants team, it's disappointing. But Ashton, let's move on. Las Vegas Raiders, lost to the Patriots. I know me and you both have the Patriots winning. We sort of could have seen the Raiders upset, but it's not shocking that they didn't. The Raiders are still a good football team. They did good against the Patriots, but the Patriots are just talent wise better, more depth. Defense is better. Cam Newton leading a solid, efficient offense. It's not good enough, I think, to be a Super Bowl contender just yet. You saw that loss against the Seahawks as an example, but they get a solid win at home and they keep moving on. They go to 2-1 on the year.
Yeah, Andy, just to back you up, this is definitely signs of a 10 to 11 win team where you go in and you can do the job against an average team, an 8 and 8 team. You don't have problems with them. It's the better teams that you struggle with. And not that they struggled with the Seahawks. We still don't know where the Seahawks rank in the NFC and the AFC, and same thing with the Patriots. We're still trying to figure that out. But in general, I feel like this was a better game by the Patriots offense. The Raiders defense isn't something to write home about. They're not particularly bad. They're not particularly good. So, Cam Newton is looking better than I expected coming into the season. So if they keep on going and they can get a offense that's a little bit dynamic and on road, they could be a team to reckon with. What their defense is clearly not as good as it was last year or the year before, but their offense is a little bit better. So they're more of an even team in my eyes than they were past years. So Andy, talking about blown leads, the Falcons just, oh man, Andy, no lead is safe with the Falcons.
If it wasn't already certain Quinn's going to be fired in Atlanta. I mean, you cannot go 2 weeks in a row with 20-point blown leads, or not 20-point blown leads, but
This one
being
was
in
16, I
16,
think.
so almost 20 point. I was almost there. So almost two 20-point leads and blow them to teams. I get the Cowboys. The Cowboys are a really good offensive team, but to do that against the Bears with Trubisky and then Foles as the quarterback, I just don't understand it. I know Allen Robinson had a great day for the Bears, but you cannot let the Bears team beat you like this. That's 2 straight weeks. That defense in Atlanta, I don't know what's going on. And it's not entirely their fault because that offense just gets stale, it feels like, after halftime. And it was like that last week.
I don't know. I mean, I'll say this about the Falcons. I think their offense is a very, very low top 10, if not like 11, 12 type of offense, top offense. But their defense is definitely bottom 10. It's just like they're consistently bad and giving up to teams that are either like the Bears are mediocre on offense. Like Cowboys is one thing. You can make a argument that the Cowboys have a top-notch offense. They have really good receivers, and if you can't adjust, you can get shredded by them. You have no excuse against the Bears. No excuse. Because the Bears, I'm sorry, Bears fans, we're not saying the Bears are terrible on offense, but they haven't been an offensive team the last few years. They've always been more defensive centric. And, they have some good pieces. I like their running back. I like one of their wide receivers, but besides that, you don't have much dynamic capability on that team on the offensive side of the ball.
100%. Ashton, I think the Bears, good for them. They're 3-0. That's something we wouldn't be, you know, if you would have told us at the beginning of the season would have been crazy. But Falcons are just blowing leads, and it's going to be a bad season for Falcons fans. But moving on in the AFC, my part of it is Houston and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh picking up the win. It was a weird game, Ashton. The Texans were leading for a lot portion of the game. Pittsburgh came back and won the game. It wasn't kind of a blown lead or anything, but I don't know. It was weird. Like we've said, I think Pittsburgh's offense just looks kind of stale, kind of lethargic this year, and their defense is top notch. But their offense I feel like it just needs better play calling. They have the tools there, I believe, but they look like stale. Like there's no other words for me to say that. The Texans are the Texans. They just signed Earl Thomas to their secondary, so that should help them a little bit. But they got a tough schedule, and we predicted a loss for them. The game, they could have won. By the way, they were performing, but they're 0-3, and it's just the Texans are just going to write the season off and hopefully get a good draft pick.
I mean, the Texans, when you talk about locker room and the skill they have on that team, it's not a bad roster. It's not a rebuilding team roster wise. It has some star talent. It still has some good quality playmakers in that locker room. I feel like most of this is on coaching. It really is. Besides the offensive line, most of the Texans team is average or better than average, different parts of it. Like signing Earl Thomas is a really good pickup. I mean, he's not the youngest guy in the world, but he still can make plays. He's still good and he can add leadership to defense. But man, losing that one to the Steelers, that's a tough one to lose. Steelers, I mean, they're just consistent. I think they're one of the most consistent teams in the last 3 weeks. Just in they're a grinded out type of team. You have to play 4 quarters with them, and if you don't, you'll end up losing. And that's big thing about Steelers. Big Ben looks solid. Their offense looks solid, and their defense looks even better. I mean, you give up 21 to Texans, so it's a little bit much, but I mean, 14, 17 points is where I was expecting Texans to end up, so it's not too much past what I expected. All right, Andy, to a shockingly surprising close game, Titans at Vikings. What's your kind of reaction to the 31-30 win by the Titans?
The Vikings are screwed. 0-3, Ash, and I know I put this on our Twitter that if you would have told me at the beginning of the season the Bears would be 3-0 and the Vikings would be 0-3 in that NFC North division, I would have called you crazy. It's really something that the Vikings are 0-3 with the schedule they've had. I understand losing the Packers, I get that. But to lose to the Titans, and didn't they also lose to the Lions last week, or was a different team?
The Vikings lost to last week.
It was either
Colts.
the Lions or the Bears. Colts? Okay, I'm
Yeah, they
completely
lost
wrong.
to the
Either way,
Colts.
they're losing the games they shouldn't. They should have been able to beat this Titans team at home. I predicted them to win. I was wrong. I just don't know what to say. I mean, like we've been saying for weeks, Kirk Cousins is not the guy that's going to lead this team. And the defense has been a lot worse than expected. Those losses in the offseason are just showing how bad of a team they are defensively. They've given up 25 or more points for the past 3 weeks, with two of them being 31 or more points. So it's just not good in Minnesota. There's no way they're going to be able to beat the Packers again. That ship has sailed. So that's another loss. So they're easily going to be slipping down to 12-4. But there's no way they're going to pick off some of these other teams they're going to have to play in the NFC. So their season's looking from a team that was, most likely borderline playoff team, maybe first or second round playoff team, to now most likely are going to miss the playoffs if they don't steer the ship in the right direction.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I still feel like the Vikings could be a 7 to 8 win team. Like they could be sneaky if some teams drop off, especially later in the season. But the Vikings, they have a lot to fix. Titans, solid game. It was a little sloppy on the Titans part, especially defensively, that kind of let the Vikings get back into the game. But in general, it's Titans football, and they brought it out and got 3-0.
Yep, we'll see how the Vikings respond. They desperately need that win. But Ashton, let's move on to another New York loss. The Colts beating the Jets, no shocker there. The Colts basically gave gotta give me game there. The Jets are complete trash along with their giant counterparts. What can you say? Le'Veon Bell's still hurt. The offense just does not look good under Adam Gase. They never have. It's hard to really judge Sam Darnold when he's got no weapons, no offensive line, no running back at all to help him. Not to mention they have no defense because of losing Jamal Adams in the secondary, losing C.J. Mosley to opting out. They're losing a lot of their big key playmakers. I just don't know what positively you can say about New York Jets fans, what you can say, except for tanking for Trevor Lawrence this year. Like I've seen a lot of people saying. So honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if this team doesn't win a single game.
I mean, I don't think Donald is necessarily the problem in New York. He might be a part of the problem, but man, you have so many holes on that roster, and especially in the defensive side. I mean, the only chance I think the Jets have of getting a win this season is probably against the Giants. Like anyone else, I will be sincerely surprised if they beat anyone else besides the Giants this year, because they are that level bad.
Oh yeah, yeah. When Miami's got to play them twice, and I'm hoping we get those two wins because that puts our total at least to three. So I'm hoping we should. I think our talent's better on that team, but we'll see how it goes, Ashton.
Go. All right. Andy, so let's move on to the surprising win for the Panthers at the Chargers. Let me start off. I'm gonna just say the Chargers is that type of team. They can beat any team and lose to any team. They're so weird this year. It's like they almost go from beating the Chiefs in overtime to losing to the Panthers, which I would say clearly doesn't have as good of a roster.
Yeah, 100%, Ashton. I just don't see how the Chargers lost this game. I know how they lost this game. They just didn't play up to expectations. But if you're going from a previous week where you honestly should have beat the Chiefs and you held that offense to what was it, 23 points or 20, 27 points, something like that. If you hold that kind of offense to that and then lose to the Panthers at home, there's no excuse. This Panthers team is without Christian McCaffrey. So their offense is running through Teddy Bridgewater and Mike Davis, the running back, who I like Mike Davis. He's a very strong power back. He will fight for extra yards. I like Mike Davis, but he is not that elite running back all-star that McCaffrey is. So they're losing offensive production, and you still can't come in there and stop the offense. It just doesn't make sense. This defense is hit or miss this year. Offense has looked, again, hit or miss. It's just the Chargers are, like you said, is one of those teams that kind of like the Rams were is very inconsistent and will beat anybody any day, but will definitely lose to anybody any day. And they need to get consistency in LA if they want a chance to even be a playoff team this year.
Yeah, they definitely remind me of the 2019 Rams, where they just had some games where they got blown out, and sometimes they lost to teams you're like, Buccaneers? What? They lost to them?
Let's let's move on, Ashton, to yes, we gotta talk about it. The Rams losing a very good competitive game, honestly, after halftime. To the Bills. The Bills score a last really couple second touchdown to go up over the Bills. Was it the Rams? Sorry, was it 35-32? Was the final score something like that? A
35
3 point
32.
game. Your kicker, Rams kicker, missed that field goal that would have tied it earlier in the game. Some weird controversial calls at the end. Either way, Bills win. They go 3-0. Ashton, what are your thoughts since the Rams are your team?
Andy, let me first off say, if you're a Bills fan watching this, Bills are a great team. I'm not gonna take anything away from the Bills. They definitely earned that victory. Um, it was such a wild ride. This is one of the most roller coastery games I can remember watching, probably since that Seahawks game last year where we lost with a last second field goal miss. And I remember in second quarter I was like, oh man, I'm like 2019 Rams showed up and they just don't want to be good at all. But in the third quarter, it was like a miracle happened and Sean McVay got touched by the gods of football and unleashed holy hell on all of the Bills. And it was they started wrecking the Bills for a quarter, and it was just not looking good for the Bills. And it just so happened the Bills get one last drive, some blown coverages, which are the Rams' fault. And it was like the 49ers game last year where I was yelling at the TV. It was like third and 28, and we gave up that third down, and then we did it again. It's like Aaron Donald can't sack the guy every play. Like you got to hold your coverage. And so that's the frustrating part as a fan is Bills throw a fourth down, 4th and 8 throw, and it gets called by PI, and you live by the PI, and you die by the PI, Andy. And um, I will say I personally disagree with the call, but that's not why we lost. I'm not going to be like a Saints fan or anything like that. We didn't lose because of that. We lost for a lot of other reasons. And the Bills won for a lot of other reasons. And you can't go down that much. It was 29, I think, or 27 to 3. You can't go down that much. It's very hard to win. And the Rams almost pulled it off. They were one down away from winning a game, and Bills almost pulled the Falcons. And, to me, I don't think it was because either team was bad, why they had different halves where they were trash and not. I think it's because both of these teams are good, and good to the point where I think they kind of shown the league, both of them, that they can put up numbers against good defenses. I think the Rams proved to be a solid defense at points, and the Bills proved to be a solid defense at points. And the Bills offense proved to be really good too.
I will say this, Ashton. I think that what this game shows to me more than anything else, other than playoff contention and all this stuff, is that both these teams, the Bills and the Rams, have excellent coaching, and it was a coaching chess game yesterday. The first half, McDermott came out and just shut McVay's offense down. He had that play action offense that you guys run down to a T. The defense was playing lights out. Like you said, it was 27-3 at one point. Going into halftime, you guys were down big. After halftime, McVay's craftiness on the offensive side and even your defensive coordinator started to show. They adjusted. The offense started to play some different play calling. The Bills couldn't respond. And it all came down to one final drive, and these coaches were just battling out. It shows that these coaches are excellent coaches of respective teams. Both quarterbacks impressed me. I think other than one bad interception by Goff, he had a good game. You know, turnover battle does sometimes determine the game, but I wouldn't say that was the major reason. Both teams really impressed me because both teams looked dominant at points, but the Bills should not have allowed the Rams to be in that position to begin with. Honestly, if you're up that big, you shouldn't even have a chance to lose the game like they did and get, I'm going to say lucky PI call, but honestly, that's a 50-50 call. It could go either way. You just happen to get the short end of the stick if you're a Rams fan. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. It's 50-50. And the Bills just won the last play, and that happens sometimes. Both teams have nothing to worry about. Like I told you, Both these teams are a lock for the playoff. It's just we're just deciding how far will they go.
Yeah, I definitely think the Rams kind of put it up there in the league where if you give the Rams any air, it doesn't matter how big your lead is, because Sean McVay can put points up on the board. He really can. He hasn't lost his touch. Where a lot of people thought, "Oh, is Sean McVay done? Is he figured out?" Sean McVay is a smart person. There's a reason why he went to a Super Bowl his second year as a head coach. So, I'm happy to have Sean McVay as a coach, but ultimately, it was a lost, close game, and we'll see where these two franchises end up at the end of the season. All right, Andy. So let's move on to the football team at the Browns. Baker taking on the football team. What do you think about this win?
Not surprising. Browns win. Browns don't really win in a dominant fashion. They still got a long way to go if they want to be dominant. This is the first time. I think it's been 2 years or 3 years, or it's been a long time, but this is the first time they're above 500. They're 2-1, so they got to win. They needed to. I think the Washington football team is still just trash. Other than that upset game, I wouldn't even call it an upset at this point. Other than that win against the Eagles, they're garbage. They really are. Browns win an unimpressive game, but a win's a win when it comes to scheduling and standings.
Yeah, the Browns beat a team that's not garbage, but will probably get 4 wins all season, maybe five. The Browns themselves are that 6, 7, maybe 8 if they sneak a win here or there. So it's nothing impressive. If they had got 50 points, maybe I would be like, oh, it's impressive. But really, they sailed off of talent. It's like this team has a lot of talent. It just doesn't have any chemistry yet and doesn't have the coaching. Like, I have no doubt if, like, let's say Sean McVay or Sean McDermott goes over to the Browns would go be a wild card team, like just with different coaching. So we'll see how they end up. I mean, it's a good start for the Browns. If you're a fan, I wouldn't get used to it because I don't necessarily think this year is gonna go that well for you. But maybe I'll be wrong and you sneak into the playoffs.
Moving on to a very interesting result: Bengals and Eagles tie. I know you had a tie for the end of the year, at least one tie. I think the Bengals might have been one of your picks. I can't remember for sure. But Eagles, man, are so bad this year. I don't know what has happened to this team. I don't know what's happened to Carson Wentz. It just they don't look the same. And if they don't figure this out, they're missing the playoffs. I mean, this NFC North, not NFC North, this NFC East is so beyond awful this year that a team under 500 honestly can make the playoffs. It's that kind of bad. Eagles need to figure it out, Ashton. I'm not giving credit where it's due. Bengals did play good in this game against a trashy team. And if you would have told me that the Bengals and the Eagles would be 0-2-1 with the same record after week 3, that's crazy. The Eagles should have been a better team this year. It's insane what's happening. I think just looking at Cincinnati, their offense is nice. They still got to work through it. They're still young. Burrow's still developing. Defensive side of the ball is still their weakest link, and their offensive line is really bad. They work on those things. They're going to be fine for years to come. This year, again, is just, seeing what you got and maybe going for a push next year. But the Eagles are just disappointing.
Eagles being Eagles, the NFC East looks worse than it was last year, and that's pretty hard. That's a low bar to hit as an entire division. Probably the worst division in football if you take it collectively. Overall, Bengals, I'm not selling my Burrow stock. I really like him as a QB1. I think he's going to be a really good one once he gets a little bit more dynamic receivers, someone a little bit younger can get more open. I'm not saying he has bad wide receivers there, he just has a little bit older group there. And Bengals are rebuilding, and I think they can get some good wins this year off of Joe Burrow, but you know, it's clear they're not going to go to the playoffs like I thought they might. I thought Joe Burrow was going to be lighting up the scoreboard, and tying the Eagles. I mean, it was more than
I
most
will.
people expected.
I will say this. I don't think it's Burrow's fault at all. And I know you're trying to say I don't think it's the receiving core either. I like the Bengals receiving core. AJ Green is like 31, I'm pretty sure, or 32, but he's still a dominant elite receiver when he's fully healthy. I love Tyler Boyd. John Ross is a fast guy, and they had Uzama before he got hurt. So it's not the receiving core or the quarterback play. It's really they have too much pressure on a young quarterback, and their defense is absolute trash, and that's what's keeping them from winning. But Ashton, let's move on to another game that we gotta just react to. Tampa Bay, no shocking, kind of beats Denver. We know how Denver's quarterback's troubles have been. Drew Lock's out for a little while. That's really gonna change the dynamic of the Broncos, and I've seen Broncos fans calling for firing of their GM. So that's a problem. And the Buccaneers get another win that builds the Brady, Fournette, Goodwin, Evans chemistry.
Yeah, Broncos are just not rebuilding the way they've been in a rebuild for 3 or 4 years and just can't get off the ground. And it's a simple win by the Bucks.
Yep. Ashton, let's go to the NFC real quick. Let's talk about the Dallas game as they lost to the Seahawks. I don't really see this as surprising. The Seahawks are the better team, and they proved it. Russell Wilson had looked really, really good against the Cowboys, lighting it up. It was always going to be kind of an offensive game. It was, and the Seahawks win. I think it was like 34-30, I think was the final
It's
score. So
31-38.
31-38. I was close. But it was an offensive show. It always will be with these two teams. Seahawks get the win because of Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I definitely think these two teams are a little bit. I think they're showing over the first 3 weeks. They're both a little bit more the unbalanced teams in the sense of just having really good offenses, but their defenses are. They have good pieces, but they don't have a complete good defense. And you see a 38-31 game, and Russell Wilson is a hard person to bet against. I did it because I thought the Cowboys might just. I had a weird feeling that they would make this game close, and they did. But Seahawks put in a good win against a difficult team. I, all right, good team. Yeah, good.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see just how the Cowboys season will progress. They're already lost 2 games. They're 1-2, but honestly, the NFC East is so wide open. They should be able to win. They are the best team in that division right now. They need to act like it, and they need to go and win out in their division. And they could get 6 wins that way and sneak in there. But Ashton, sticking with our Sunday night game, Green Bay Packers beating the Saints in a pretty good game. I think Aaron Rodgers just proved why he's the better quarterback right now, even without Devontae Adams, might I add you. So that offense was still limited and still put up more points. I don't hate the Saints. I think they were fine, but without Michael Thomas, that offense just isn't as dynamic, which is sad because they have some good playmakers. Emmanuel Sanders is no scrub. Alvin Kamara is a beast. Murray is a pretty good backup running back. Defense just didn't step up like they needed to. Packers get a good solid win, and they're undefeated.
Yeah, Andy. I mean, it was a pretty Aaron Rodgery type of win. I thought he looks like he's back to form after a rough 2 years, or like a downturn. I think the new coaching staff is helping him a lot. Matt LaFleur is kind of spicing up the Packers offense, and I felt like they had more energy going into this game, and I think they proved it during the game. So Packers win is kind of what I saw. Saints are still a good team. I still think they're going to the playoffs. It's just going to be the NFC is going to be interesting this year. It's going to be a very interesting conference. So Andy, let's move on to the Lions at the Cardinals performing, I would say, probably the biggest upset of the weekend.
Yeah, I would definitely say the Detroit win was the most shocking. I mean, this Cardinals team was looking red hot. The offense was clicking on all cylinders. That Murray, DeAndre Hopkins connection looked great. But we saw on Sunday that defense, which was the weakest link, did not perform against the Detroit Lions. And, me and you are both very high on Matthew Stafford. We think he's underrated. They had some pieces in Detroit to make some noise. And I think Matt Patricia finally saved his job for the time being because they were looking at a very tough schedule. And the Lions, he's on the hot seat, and they got that win against the Cardinals, which no one really saw coming, even really before the year. I think many people pencil that in as a loss. That's a good win to get. They can build on that. They can keep moving forward. I like the Lions. I don't think they're going to go too far this year, but they should compete with every single team, and they did. And the Cardinals, man, the Cardinals want to compete in that NFC with the 49ers when they're healthy, with the Rams, with the Seahawks. They got to perform better and not lose to teams like the Lions.
Yeah, Andy, I'll say the Lions kind of remind me of the Cardinals from last year. They're a very scrappy bunch. They won't win most of those scrappy games, but they'll make it where you're not comfortable with your team winning. It's like it's always in the back of your head that they could come back and beat you some way, and they shouldn't. And that's what happened here. The Lions didn't choke it like they typically do. And ultimately, the Cardinals show that they need probably another year of some defensive draft picks to kind of bolster that defense to be a more average defense. Because if you're giving up 26 points to the Lions, the NFC West is a hard division. You have some top tier offensive minded coaches, and even the 49ers hurt. Like, you have to face them again. You have to face McVay twice, and you have to face the Seahawks, which also have a rolling offense. So you got to be better than that defensively to be competitive in the West.
I think another problem with the Cardinals is Isaiah Simmons, the rookie linebacker safety hybrid that they have, has just not performed well so far this season. I know it's only 3 weeks in. Sometimes rookies aren't going to easily come in and become instant stars like we've seen. It takes time sometimes. But man, has he just looked bad? I think he has very, very few tackles through 3 weeks, and he's a starter. So he just not looked good for them. He needs to step up. He was a huge piece. He was their first round draft pick. The guy that fell. Maybe he fell for a reason. I don't know. I'm still very high on Isaiah Simmons. I like him as that hybrid guy, but he's got to step it up. If he does, I think this Cardinals team will be just fine. But Ashton, moving on to our last game, we're going to react about this week 3. Just happened tonight. The Baltimore Ravens, man, they looked awful. They got smacked against the Chiefs' rolling offense. Now, I picked the Baltimore Ravens to win, and let me tell you, they did not look good. The Chiefs needed this comeback. They really struggled against the Chargers last week, and people were already writing them off. And they come out and they beat probably, the experts' number one team going into the season. They beat them handily. The scoreline is going to show a little bit of a closer game than it really was. But man, the Chiefs manhandled them, controlled them, and that defense stopped the Lamar Jackson offense, which is really crazy to think about.
Yeah, I wasn't buying the super team that a lot of the analysts were predicting the Ravens to be like. I think someone had them going 16-0, like some of the analysts. Some people had 15-1, and just to me, that's nuts. The Ravens are a good team. Don't get me wrong; they're a top tier team, but they have some holes, and Lamar Jackson still doesn't have a lot of experience playing in close games, in high pressure games. And when he does, and you force him to start the throw, and he gets behind, the Ravens don't perform as well, and that's why I had the Chiefs winning this game. I just felt like Mahomes, if he's behind, has a chance to win when Lamar doesn't have a chance to run and kind of control the clock. Like, Ravens are really good when they're up, but when they're down, they struggle somewhat, especially against a good offensive team.
Yeah, we saw that in the playoffs last year, and you talk about the pressure on Lamar, but the Titans just ran through them because they didn't have the Titans controlled the clock. When they ran against that defense and they couldn't, Earl Thomas and the rest of those boys just couldn't stop them because they were just playing smash mouth in your mouth, running the ball, and the clock would just keep ticking and ticking 5, 6, 7, 8 minute drives. When they're doing that and Lamar Jackson just isn't being able to do his normal run stuff, he's a good quarterback. He's one of the best, top 5, easy top 3 in my opinion. But his weakness is still his arm. He has a great arm, but is not the strongest when he's forced to pass. He is a mobile quarterback first and foremost. And
Definitely,
that's
he's
why I think
definitely
he's the
improved. Definitely improved.
that's why I think that Lamar Jackson is the number 3 quarterback and not the number 2 like a lot of people think. Because Mahomes has the arm for days. He is the strongest arm we've seen in the NFL maybe ever. On top of he's not a scrambler, but he can move when he wants to. That's why he's called an improviser. He's not a scrambler, he's an improviser because he does things that are insane. And this Russell Wilson is the best of both worlds. He's really fast, he can move, and he's got an arm. Not as good as Mahomes, but man, Wilson is elusive. The problem with Lamar Jackson is he's got speed for days. One of the fastest quarterbacks ever in the NFL, and he will move and juke and just make people look silly. But when he's forced to be a pocket passer or pass more under pressure, he falls a little bit. He needs to work on that arm. I still think he's leaps and bounds better than Cam Newton was at his peak, but he needs to hone in on that arm or it's going to be his downfall. But he's still young. He's still got plenty to prove, and this Ravens team still has a lot to play for this year. But guys, thank you for joining us on our week 3 reactions. Crazy week. Ashton, congratulations for beating me by 1 this week. You know, there's still plenty more, and I got that lead on you still, so I'm going to keep going strong. But guys, join us back on this Thursday as we go for week 4 predictions. Hopefully we can get perfect score across the board. Probably not, but thank you guys for watching. Hit that like button, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video.